I think the quickest way to figure out if somebody is a Founders listener is if they bring up the name Edwin Land.
How hilarious was that tweet? There's a lot of great tweets. That's the great thing about having an audience, because they're just super smart and they say funny shit all the time. But the idea where it's just like, it's like the community secret password. The guy's in like some fucking coffee shop or restaurant. They talk about Edwin Land. They turn over, it's like, do you listen to Founders? Like, yeah, I listen to Founders. I absolutely love that.
What about Edwin Land gets you so excited?
What's not to like? Like, one of the things is like how crazy he is. I didn't even know who the fuck he was, right? And most people don't.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I should back up. There's a bunch of things I like about him. One, he's a better founder than I'll ever be, because he's also like, he essentially just had one focus. I don't know how often he saw his daughters. It's just like, that's the, you know, he was just like hyper focused on one thing. Where I think like I'm not willing to be, you know, like it's important for me to, we see how it is when my kids are out and in college though. If I still have the energy, it would be fucking crazy, right? So I'll back up. Greatest entrepreneur of the last, you know, since Henry Ford, I would say is probably Steve Jobs. Like, in terms of like changing our actual life, right? Like, imagine if he was still alive, he'd be in like his 60s now. Now, it's one thing, like me and you make a podcast, we put these things out, numbers grow, but they're like numbers on a screen, right? Steve made physical products. Like, imagine how crazy it must be if you were Steve Jobs and you made literally the most successful consumer product of all time, and everywhere you fucking went, people, you see it, people using it. It kills me.
Wait. Side note: has anyone ever come up to you and been like, "Yo, I'm listening to the podcast right now"?
Okay.
It hasn't happened.
I'll tell you the weird thing. You gotta tell me. No, go ahead, tell me.
No, I mean, it happened to me in the past month, and it was like, holy shit, this is the coolest thing of all time.
I'm gonna tell you, and it sounds like I'm fucking lying, because it's like I've never listened to a podcast on speaker, like walking around, right? Like you don't know unless somebody tells you, because you don't know what they're listening to. I am walking through a park that was like a couple blocks from here, and I'm like, "Why? This is weird." Like, there's a guy coming towards me. There was no interaction. I just walked past him. I heard my fucking voice, and I'm like, it sounds like that. How? And I'm pretty sure I know who it is, because he follows me on Twitter. He also lives here, but I wasn't entirely sure, because it's one of these like, it's like avatars. Mm-hmm. It's like kind of their face, but it's like a cartoon kind of thing. But I'm almost positive this is who it was. But I was like, what the fuck? Like, how is that even possible? But that's the only time. Yeah, because most people don't see me. Like, first of all, I don't go anywhere. Like, I'm either working with like founder friends, and that'd be weird if they show up to dinner and they're listening to my podcast. Or like I'm with my family. So it's not like I'm out, like, you know, socializing or in the club or something.
Yeah.
Edwin Land. So you're reading. So in terms of like changing our world, I think, you know, Steve Jobs up there. Obviously Henry Ford, because he's the first mass-produced automobile that changed literally the structure of cities and where we live and everything. And the crazy thing about Steve Jobs is like, he was talking about Edwin Land right before he was going to die, and he knew he was going to die. Talks about him being his hero. And he talked about Edwin Land when he was in like age 20. So there's like you go and read Steve Jobs writing or see speeches and stuff. He's like constantly talking about this guy. I'm like, this is kind of weird. Like, why is he bringing this up? That's fascinating. And he calls him his hero. I'm like, whoa, this is like bells going off in my mind. Like, I need to find out about what's so special with this guy. And then you start studying Edwin Land, and you're like, oh shit, all these ideas that I thought were Steve Jobs were actually ones he learned from Edwin Land, which is the entire thesis of Founders Podcast, which is why you're not doing your job if you're not studying the history of your industry, right? And like every single presentation, the Steve Jobs product presentation he did, he'd have the same picture up there, and it's this street sign that says liberal arts and technology. He's like, we're building a company at the intersection at this intersection. That's literally Edwin Land's quote. That's how Edwin Land thought about Polaroid. And so then you go and you're like, guy drops out of Harvard twice, right? It's just like, what the hell is that? Has his first patent at 19. Struggles to build a unique scientific achievement, going back to his life motto of don't do anything no one else can do, for 20 years. By the time he's 38, he has achieved everything that he ever wanted except success. That is a line in one of his biographies. He'd been trying to build a bunch of products for the military, for private industry. Then he realized, like, I don't want anybody in between me and the end consumer, right? So I'm just going to sell directly to consumers. Then he invents instant photography. So people today, they think it's silly because, like, we take fucking 500 pictures a day. You can see right away. Before Edwin Land, me and you be hanging out. I take a picture of you. You're like, hey, how'd it come out? Like, we'll find out in a week when we get it back from Kodak. You'd had no fucking idea. And now all of a sudden it's like, I took a picture of you. How'd it come out? We'll find out in 60 seconds on this fucking Polaroid. He invented that. That's like magic, man. Yeah.
Third time getting chills on this podcast.
And then, like, you just realize, like, then he goes on and builds. That is the light. So a lot of businesses want to protect. They want it, like, some patentable, like, they want a monopoly, a patent protected monopoly.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times, especially nowadays, like, they find creative ways to get around your patents, or they'll assault it or do something else. Me and my friend John Coogan, who's also on your podcast,
episode 314.
He there you go. Good. I'm glad you're memorizing this stuff. He studies this stuff too. He was doing a video on this. He's like, who's the last like what was the last patent protectable technology company? It's like, dude, it might be Polaroid. And he went back. I don't think he found anything different. And it's like he sewed up his entire. Not only did he invent the industry, he monopolized it, and then he only focused on that for 3 or 4 decades. And he's smart, well-read, handsome, articulate, an unbelievable scientist, an unbelievable entrepreneur, an unbelievable writer. Like, what else more do you want? Inspired the greatest entrepreneur of our generation, who is then in turn went on and inspired millions and millions of other entrepreneurs around the world. And no one knows who the fuck this guy is. Crazy. So if I have any influence where I can, I clearly I repeat it so much, so this has like become a meme now. It was like, good. Like, listen to my podcast on Edwin Land and go find and read the books about him, man. Your life will be better off knowing him and how he thought, and you might find ideas that he discovered in his life that you can use in your work.
Yeah. Why do we forget so much of the greatness that has existed before us?
Humans are unbelievably self-absorbed. We don't think about. This is one of the most freeing. People find this like weird. I found it so freeing. Tim Urban has this great post about this, like the mammoth or some shit like that. Like, essentially, in your mind, you'll go out into like a public area, and like you'll be worried, like, oh, what if I make a mistake? And like everybody else turns around, like, look at Danny, and he has this great post, and he has like these little stick figure drawings, and that's what in your mind. In reality, it's everybody's just looking at themselves or looking at their phone, or like they're not looking at you at all. And I think people fundamentally misunderstand human nature. It's like, of course, like you have to be self-absorbed because the important thing is for you to survive long enough to propagate your genes, your genetic material, and to reproduce, right? And then therefore the continuation of our species seems to be evolution's primary goal, right? And that's not served by you worrying about what everybody else is doing. And some people find that depressing. I find it freeing because it's like, man, if I make a mistake, if I come on here and say something stupid, okay, they'll be like, oh, look, that guy was an idiot. And then they're like, oh, what am I going to have for lunch? Oh, I got to go pick up my girlfriend from the airport. Oh, did I do my assignment? Oh, I got to do this thing for my boss. They don't think about me at all. Mm-hmm. And so my biggest thing is like, I think there's a lot of people being held back from doing what they truly want to do in life because they're concerned about what other people will think if they fail. And what I say is like, I would grab them by the face and be like, no one will think about you. So go fucking chase what you want to do because it doesn't matter. All that matters is that what you think and what you want to do.
The Queen died in the last year, and most people haven't thought about the Queen until I just mentioned that. And she was the queen of a country.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I didn't even know her fucking name.